Alright, hello everybody. I hope the lighting is correct. Sometimes it looks like it's too dark, sometimes it looks like it's too bright. So... I can't tell. I'll be right back. I'm gonna check the screen real quick. Yeah, one bit of lighting was not correct. So hello everybody. It's a bit too warm for a jacket, but a bit too cold for the air conditioning to be on. So I'm right in between where I can't wear a blazer for tea time. It's just too warm. Let me go to my channel. And to my chat. Yes. Political ads. Hello, Ivan. Hello, Pacific. Hey, Ryan. Hey, Pookie Smoochie. How's it going, Daniel? Hello, Christian. Magical Cat is here. Hello. Hello, Deshaun. Hello, KSG. Oh my goodness, Daniel says... Well, I can't read that out loud, but... Well, I'm glad nobody was injured. Oh my goodness. Yeah, let's go ahead and start this tea. And then I will... put some tea in the infuser. So... Hello, David. Yeah, you know what's funny was, so I was going to have a cucumber sandwich today, but when I pulled out the ingredients to start making it, I realized that the dill was not good. It had gone bad, but you couldn't tell because looking from the outside of the box, it looked perfectly green and fine, but when you opened the box and you pulled out the dill, it was all like wilted and it was just rotting. It was just... Yeah, all kinds of colors and stuff. I was like, So, no cucumber sandwich today. And I was going to make a replacement, but then I just, I didn't have time. So, no sandwich today. David says, hi, how are you? I am good. How are you? David says you should make nachos. That'd be funny. I think that's correct. Yeah. I'll go ahead and put these over here. Alrighty. Hey, Jeffrey, how's it going? The Pacific says you're in the middle of the music hall building and doing math. Oh my gosh. Hall of Music. Oh, Hall of Music. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Hey Ken, how's it going? Hello, Gray Starline. Put that there. So. Oh, thank you so much, KSG. I'm kind of sad. Got a meet and greet ticket for my favorite band last year. Got cancelled last week. Ah, well, I still see them live. If you're curious, the band is Evanescence. Oh, I used to like Evanescence. I haven't listened to any of their new stuff, but when I was a teenager, I used to listen to Evanescence a lot. Let's see, what was my favorite song? My favorite song was called Anywhere by Evanescence. I don't think it was one of their most popular songs. It was one of their lesser known songs, but it was my favorite. Yeah. Christian says, I'm surprised that Cunard is still around since the Lusitania had sunk. Well, I mean, ships sink. It doesn't necessarily mean that the company will go out of business. you know, lots of ships sank. I mean, look at White Star Line. They had so many ships sink over the course of their existence. And, you know, and they stayed around, you know. So, yeah, a ship sinking doesn't necessarily put an ocean liner company out of business. Oh, I can't even tell you guys how happy I am to be here on this live stream right now. Because, oh my goodness, I just needed it. You know, and yesterday I was so busy because I was trying to get... So the next video that's coming out is about the vampires of the Ursuline Convent in New Orleans. I thought it'd be really fun to do kind of a video that's kind of Halloween themed, but it also discusses the history of the Ursuline Convent, which is the oldest building in New Orleans. And so I thought, you know, that'd be kind of a cool way to tell history, but then also to kind of tell a, you know, a dark side of the story, you know? So, but the thing is, like, I've been working really hard to get that video done. I was having so many issues with my other microphone yesterday, and I had to solve those, and by the time I did, it was too late to keep working, so that work will have to carry on over to today. So I think after the stream, I'll get back to working on it. The video was going to be released on Friday, but I'm thinking I might have to release it Saturday. But then again, Saturday is the live stream with me and Steve. Oh boy. I might release it on Saturday anyway. Just because I wanted to have a video out this week, you know? So, because I'm still in the beginning stages of that video, so there's no way I'll have it out tomorrow. There's just no way. But yeah, so it'll be an interesting video, I think. Will it be one that everybody will watch? Well, based on the Spruce Goose video, based on the other videos I've been putting out recently, I don't think people will watch it that much. But, I mean, it is interesting, so hopefully, you know, people will just... At least the people who really watch the channel will watch that, so... But yeah, I'd like to get more folks who are just into history in general to kind of start watching the channel. I don't want to solidify myself into one subject too much because I've learned the hard way with my Disneyland content that when you focus solely on one subject, it just doesn't end well. Oh, I didn't get the little cup. KSG, thank you again. Oh my gosh. Last donation for today, feeling generous. Caught COVID, but I'm better now. Oh my gosh, that's good. Make sure to check out Evanescence's new stuff. It's awesome. Okay, I will. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Okay, hold on. Let me get a cup for the excess water I have here. Okay. Now we empty out about half of each. Let's see. Hello, QE2 fan. Daniel says, hello, Alex. What are your thoughts on the Hikawa Maru ship? I don't know much about it. I know so little about it that I actually can't picture it in my head, so I don't really have an opinion on it. But I mean, I know it's an ocean liner, so it's good that it's still around because we don't have that many ocean liners still around. Ryan says, what tea is it today? Today it is Earl Gray. There we go. Oh, wow. I didn't realize I overfilled this. Jeez. Okay. Pacific says, my feet ache currently burning from the squatting in the hallway. Okay. Jimmy says, what days do you do the afternoon tea? Is it like every week? Yeah, so I usually do the tea times on Wednesdays and Sundays at 4 p.m. Pacific time, because 4 p.m. is tea time, you know. But yeah, so I do it Wednesdays and Sundays. I didn't do it yesterday because I was really busy working on a video. I had a lot of technical difficulties with my microphone, and so yesterday I had to skip it. But I did it today because I still really wanted to do a tea time live stream. Like, they're really fun for me. I actually really enjoy them a lot. So yeah, that's why I decided to do it today instead of just skipping it altogether and waiting till Sunday. Well, plus I also had the ingredients for a cucumber sandwich. I usually have, like, traditionally, tea time is served with some kind of tea sandwich. And so I make a special cucumber sandwich. But one of the ingredients was rotten, and I didn't find that out till like an hour ago, and I had already scheduled the stream. So, yeah, so that's why I'm doing it today. But yeah, sorry, that long answer. But yeah, Wednesdays, Sundays, 4 p.m. Pacific time. Oh my gosh, KSG Games signed up for my membership. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Daniel says, were there any ocean liners that ran out of fuel and were stranded in the middle of the ocean? You know, I bet there was, but I don't recall. It would have especially happened, though, in the early days of steam-powered liners. And then what they probably would have done was use the sails after that. But to my knowledge, even that might not be accurate, because from what I know, they used the sails to get out to open ocean, and then they crossed with steam, and then they came into port on sail, or maybe it was the opposite. I'm still new to ocean liners, folks, so, take my word with a grain of salt. But yeah, let's see here. QE2 fan says, do you like the ocean liners Bremen and Europa? They're actually pretty interesting. The interiors are very beautiful, but I don't know as much about them as, like, let's say RMS Mauretania or Titanic or Olympic. And so, yeah, I wouldn't say that I know very much about them, but from what I've seen, I think they're very beautiful. KSG says, I'll stop now, I swear. By all means, don't stop. Moonzer, thank you so much. Hey, Alex, I'm 11. I have a question. Did you know that the John Petter story is true? And did John Petter have a room on the Queen Mary, like B340? So yes, the John Petter story is true. For those that don't know, I mean, it is the Halloween season, so, it's a good time to discuss it anyway. John Petter was part of the engineering crew for the Queen Mary. He worked down below decks. I think he oiled machinery, I think. He was a very young man. I believe he was 18, if I'm remembering that correctly. And during a routine watertight door testing, they would sound the alarms, and then about 15 or 30 seconds later, the doors would start shutting. And he was down below decks and in between the watertight compartments. And for a reason that we do not know for certain, he decided to cross from one compartment to the other with the watertight door shutting. Those doors are not like elevator doors where there's like a sensor to keep it open. They just shut, and whatever's in their way, they crush it. And unfortunately, the young man found himself in between the door, and it kind of crushed him from here down to here. So it wasn't like perfectly in half like some people might think. He was stepping through the doorway, and when you step through the doorway, you're kind of like doing that. So, and he was ducking too because the doorway's really short. And yeah, it just crushed him from here to here. And it didn't sever him or anything. It just crushed him, and he was immediately, treated, but he soon after died of his wounds. So that was a real story that happened on the Queen Mary. Some people claim that they feel his ghostly presence or something like that. That one from me might be a solid maybe. I am skeptical of a lot of ghost stories on the Queen Mary, especially because a lot of the ghost stories on Queen Mary were made up by Disney. This one is not made up, and I actually, I wouldn't say I saw John Petter, not at all, but I was down there, and I could have sworn I was filming, and I did a video on this actually. I was filming that area, and I saw something in the corner of my eye, like somebody was walking down one of the old catwalks that, you know, guests don't have access to. I turned my head and the camera at the same time because I thought there was somebody there. But there was nobody there. And to this day, I don't really know if I think I saw a ghost or if I literally just saw, like, I was passing by an object and maybe I misconstrued that for a ghost or something. But if I ever had at all a paranormal experience on the Queen Mary, it might have been that area, which I'm not ready quite to say that it was John Petter, you know, like, especially because, you know, I try to respect ghosts because, you know, their family probably doesn't want their family member to be called a ghost, you know, so, but yeah. KSG Game says, I need to stop. I have a cruise coming up in February. Still got to pay $1,400. RMS Lusitania says, hello. Jimmy says, if you could save any ship from sinking, what would you do? There are so many that sank, but you can save only one. Gosh, that's a tough one, because do you choose based on your love of the ship, or do you choose based on how many people died? If I had to choose based on how many people died, I'd say there was a German ship that to this day holds the record of the most deaths. I believe it was about 9,000 people died. I don't remember the name off the top of my head. But if I was choosing based off of how many people died and how many I could potentially save by saying, let's not let that one sink, it would be that one. But if I had to choose based off of, like, what ship is my favorite, because I'd like to see it today, probably either Lusitania or Oceanic from 1899. Yeah. That's my answer. Okay. Time to start brewing. So for the brew, because I preheated these, and they're pretty hot now, so I'm just going to bring the water back up to a boil. Oh, see you later, Gray Starline. The Fat Hat says, I was reading the wiki on the submarine next to the Queen Mary, and it said that it was found to be flooding and was removed in 2015. But in your virtual tour, which was made after 2015, it was still there. It is still there, and it's still there today. They didn't remove it. It was found to be flooding, yes, and I've seen that myself, because one time my friends and I were in the area. We didn't go on the ship, but we were in the area, and it was late at night, and there were some kids that had just walked off of the submarine, and they showed us pictures that they had taken. I think they snuck into the submarine, to be totally honest. And they showed us some pictures they took, and it showed flooded areas. But then, years later, when I went with my adult friends, because that was back when I was a teenager, but years later when I went with my adult friends, we saw all kinds of critters there. We saw, like, a family of raccoons. We saw birds flying into the submarine. And then late at night, I saw rats crawling out of it. So, yeah, it's in bad shape, and the city wants to get rid of it, but it's currently tied up in legal matters because it's not owned by the city, and they can't just remove it, you know, they do have to find the owners. If they can't find the owners, then they'll remove it. But that's an ongoing matter. Okay, so 426 is when I do that. There we go. Yes, RMS Lusitania got it. Yeah, Wilhelm Gustloff was the ship I was thinking of that had 9,000 deaths. Sheridan says, morning from Australia. I think the Stockholm was the last liner operating until recently as the Astoria. I think that's correct too. It was the last liner operating. Well, I mean, technically, you know, Queen Mary 2 is also an ocean liner, so it was still operating during that time, but the Astoria was an ocean liner, and it was operating till recently as the Astoria, I believe. Little Gamer says, opinion on hamburgers. I love a good hamburger. I'm very picky about hamburgers. You know, as an American, we know what a good hamburger is, so we're very picky about it. But yeah, I do love hamburgers. Maritime Review. How's it going, Alex? Went a bit casual today because of a long day of work, wearing 1950s casual for the live stream. Awesome. 1950s casual is still very nice. Ozzy says, how's the weather today, Alex? And did you burn your fingers today? I did sort of burn my fingers, and I probably will when I pour the tea in. The weather is pretty good. I was just saying earlier that I'm not wearing a blazer or jacket, as you know, some people say, because it's too warm to wear one, but too cold to put on the air conditioner. So, you know. Mark says, hey Alex, I just noticed the stream, thought it was postponed. It was postponed till today. Yeah. So, because I didn't do it yesterday, so I postponed it till today. Let's see. KSG says, should probably head to bed. It's 1:20 a.m. Oh my gosh. People stay up late just to watch my live streams. That's actually really cool, you know. I'm really appreciative of that. People are so into the channel. It makes me feel good. I mean, that's why I do these live streams, because like, you know, I like having people to talk to, and you know, the live streams are always the highlight of my week, honestly. Because I can just talk to people and just have fun, and we can talk about all kinds of subjects about ships and things. And Moonzer, thank you again. Alex, isn't sad that the Queen Elizabeth burnt down, because it would be cool to stay the night on it like you can on the Queen Mary? I agree, yeah. It would have been really cool if the Queen Elizabeth was still around, because, you know, I would want to book a trip and go visit it, even if it was just sitting around in some harbor as a hotel like the Queen Mary is. I would have loved to book a trip and go visit it and stay aboard. I think that's really cool. You know, depending on where it would have been docked to or moored, if you will, I would have gone there and just had a fun time, you know. That's part of the reason why some people travel to LA is for the Queen Mary. I mean, granted, let's be honest, like, the more interesting tourist attractions are the reason why people come to LA, but the Queen Mary is a good reason to stay, you know, on the Queen Mary, because you come to LA to see Disneyland, and some people like to book their rooms at the Queen Mary for that. And that's always a good way to give the Queen Mary business. Let's see. Magical Cat says, was the horn on the Queen Mary automatically go off, or someone to blow the horn? Because I'm confused. You mean in the old days or modern days, after she became a hotel? Because in the old days, someone would like turn a switch or something, and that would blow the horn on the Queen Mary. But today, today they still have the ability to blow the horn at will, but it is on a timer. So it blows every, like, I want to say every 3 hours from noon to to 6 p.m. So I think it blows 3 times a day. Or maybe it's every 2 hours from noon to 6 p.m. So like noon, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6. Yeah, but yeah, but they had the ability to manually like press a switch and it could blow the horn. All right. Jimmy says, would you rather cross the ocean on the Queen Mary for $1,000, or would you rather cross the ocean on the most luxurious and best plane in the world for free? Even though it would cost me $1,000, I would rather cross the ocean on the Queen Mary. And the reason why is because it's more historic, it's more interesting, it's all about the experience, and it's more comfortable. I really don't like being on airplanes. They're just not comfortable. I don't enjoy that at all. I've been on airplanes because I've had to use airplanes to get places. But I do not enjoy being on an airplane. And so it's really hot. So yeah, I would rather spend $1,000 and go across the ocean on the Queen Mary. And it's possible a lot of people here would agree with me on that. Because a lot of us are ocean liner fans. A lot of us are Queen Mary fans. Okay. Oh, that's really hot. Now we dump out the water in the cup. There we go. Christian says, hey Alex, did you know about the 2012 Costa Concordia disaster? Oh yeah, I watched it on the news when it happened. It's a very famous disaster. Almost as famous as Titanic. Yeah, I still remember the Costa Concordia incident like it was yesterday. It was just so vivid. Oh, yeah, Mark, I understand. That's so weird to think, like, you're talking to me from Friday. That's weird. Oh my gosh. It's like you're speaking to me from the future. Deshaun says, hey Alex, what are your thoughts on Splash Mountain? It's complicated. I'm guessing what you want to ask me is like whether or not I agree with the changes. And I've always felt, and this is for every ride, I've always felt that if they're going to replace it with something better. Because I don't want something to be replaced with something that isn't as good. That's happened a lot around Disneyland, is like they've replaced certain rides or shows with something that just wasn't as good. So we'll see, you know, if the new boat ride is better than what was there. And as long as it is, I'm totally cool with it. You know, Tiana is my favorite Disney princess, you know, when it comes to Disney movies, because, you know, I always wanted to be a cook, a chef, and she did too. And that's kind of like one of those things where I'm like, oh, that's really cool that, you know, there's something that I have in common with a Disney character, you know. So I thought that was really cool. And even in like when I was a teenager, I used to say, you know, Splash Mountain is cool, but it's getting old and outdated. Like, there's just a lot of stuff. Like, that ride was just slowly dying. So it needed to be replaced with something. I do appreciate Splash Mountain. I have some nostalgia for it because it's been around since before I was born. I remember going to Disneyland all the time and seeing it. But I've never been attached to that ride because I've never really liked being on it. I have a fear of heights, so I don't like being all the way up at the top and then going down the big waterfall. Like, that scares the daylights out of me. So I don't really have an emotional connection to that ride. And I probably won't even after the Tiana thing is installed because, again, I'm afraid of heights. So I wouldn't want to be up there on that ride. And so to me, it doesn't really bother me in any way, the changes, you know. So like I said, as long as it's better than what was there before, then I'm cool with it. Let's see. Oh, wow, everything scrolled up. Maritime Review says, just imagine if the RMS Aquitania was rebuilt as a hotel museum. Where do you think the replica would be built? Either New York or Liverpool or Southampton. I would think that that's where they would do it, you know. New York only if it was Americans who built it. But, I mean, if it's going to be the British, then it's probably going to be either, like, Liverpool or Southampton, I think. Ken says, did the QE roll as bad as the Queen Mary? From what I've heard, the QE didn't quite roll as badly as the Queen Mary, but it did roll. It was a slow roll that both ships had. So, and even in calm weather, it would just slowly roll. But yeah, so as far as I know, it did roll a bit like Queen Mary, but not quite as much or to the degree that Queen Mary did. KSG says, I'll stay a few more minutes. You are torturing yourself. Oh my gosh. Hello, cable car. See you later, RMS Lusitania. Little Gamer says the water tower gives Western vibes. Very good, because that is exactly what I was going for. The Fat Hat says, do you know how they filmed the Poseidon Adventure in 1972? Because a lot of the ship is very reminiscent of the Queen Mary, such as the ballroom, lifeboat decks, and bridge, and it was filmed after. Well, so a lot of the scenes, I'm not going to say most, but a lot of the scenes of 1972's Poseidon Adventure was filmed aboard the Queen Mary, as it sat in Long Beach, believe it or not. So the scenes with the bridge, some of them, no, I think all the scenes on the bridge were actually filmed in a set, but they did film, like, in the very beginning of the movie, you see, like, some kid running across the sun deck and there's rain coming down and he's passing underneath the lifeboats. That was actually filmed in Long Beach at the Queen Mary. And things like that. And then, but there were a lot of scenes, like, some people think, like, they filmed the ballroom scene on the Queen Mary, but they didn't. That was a movie set. But a lot of the exterior shots were done on the Queen Mary. So if you see an exterior shot and it's of an actual ship, it's likely the Queen Mary at Long Beach. And then, of course, they did some, like, far away shots done with models, you know, but yeah. Mark says, oh, Alex, yes, I agree. I would cross on the Mary rather than an aircraft. I have traveled first class for work many times, but ocean travel beats it hands down. Christian says, hey, Alex, did a girl die in the swimming pool area in the Queen Mary? No. There's no record of anybody drowning on the Queen Mary. There's no record of any children dying in the pool areas, especially since children weren't allowed in the pool areas. So yeah, there's no record of that at all. And Cunard keeps an impeccable record of incidents that happen aboard their ships. So there's just no record of that. Big Boom, Theory says, hey, Alex, would you rather get a first-class ticket on Olympic or on Titanic? Olympic, knowing that, you know, Olympic survived. QE2 fan, no, I haven't heard of that ship before, the SS Waratah. Christian says, I'm surprised that they actually spin the Queen Mary's port propeller with a motor. They used to in the 70s, but that hasn't worked in decades. It hasn't worked since I've been alive. So I think the last time it worked was in the 80s. But yeah, they used to spin it with a motor. Deshaun says, I mean like the ride in animatronic. Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean. KSG upgraded their membership. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Oh my gosh. You're making me laugh today. Oh my goodness. George says, sup Alex? Hello. Jimmy says, would you go on the Queen Mary 2 if it was available in your area / close nearby? Absolutely. Because that would make it a lot cheaper than having to fly to New York to go on the Queen Mary 2. So yeah, if the Queen Mary 2 was in my area, definitely I would go. Jimmy says, this is also my second time being here. Well, thank you for coming back. Earl Gray is my favorite tea. QE2 fan says, have you seen Beyond the Poseidon Adventure? Is that the sequel to the first one? I haven't seen it, but I don't usually like to watch sequels. Christian says, hey Alex, they made a movie called Titanic 2, and they had Queen Mary in the beginning, and they slapped Titanic 2 where the nameplate Queen Mary would be. Yeah, I believe it. I know about Queen Mary 2. I'm sorry, I know about Titanic 2. Yeah. Hello, Dazzer's channel. Maritime Review says, did you ever see footage of when Queen Mary was in Long Beach in 1968? The footage showed the interiors very dark and empty. Would imagine it being very creepy being by yourself and pitch dark on board the Queen Mary. Yes, I did see the footage. That was taken because, well, I mean, they were. I know that the footage I saw was for a special done by Petula Clark, and because the ship was already retired and yet wasn't converted to a hotel, they didn't have the power generators on or anything, so the whole ship was completely dark. And the camera crew were in there with, like, flashlights and stuff. And, yeah, it is pretty eerie, a ship without power like that. Because the Queen Mary is like a palace. So being in there without power, completely dark. And the Queen Mary, not many of her public rooms have large windows, you know. A lot of them were very small portholes. So the amount of light coming into the ship was really just... It was very dim, very low. KSG Games says, can't find the Discord link. If you go to the community tab on my channel and then you scroll down, I put a post there. It says like hello new channel members, or it says like, actually for people that are archivists, it'll say hello new archivists or something like that. And if not, after the stream I will make a new post with the link to it. So anybody who's wondering what I'm talking about, that is for people who pay for membership. You can have access to a private Discord server where you can talk to me and other folks that are there. Big Boom Theory says, hey Alex, if Cunard never existed, what would be your favorite ship company? I suppose it would have to be the White Star Line then. Yeah. If Cunard never existed. Magical Cat says, what's your opinion on the SS America? I don't really have much of an opinion. I admire its World War II service. I'm sorry. Yeah, World War II. World War II service. I had to think for a moment. Like, but I don't know what it looks like on the inside, so I couldn't tell you whether I think it's very nice. I don't like the way it looks like on the outside, that's for sure. But then again, I didn't like most ocean liners from the United States line. I don't know. I just don't like the way those look. Moonzer, thank you so much. Alex, did you know people live on the Queen Mary? At the moment, nobody lives on the Queen Mary. A couple of years back, there was a representative, a director of some kind, of the Urban Commons company, and he lived aboard the Queen Mary by himself with his little dog. And I hope desperately that he didn't let his dog just like poop and pee everywhere. But he did live by himself on the ship during the pandemic. But as far as I know, there's nobody that currently lives on the Queen Mary. I think the name is Oprah. So, hello, Oprah. Maritime View says, are you into 1930s gangster movies like Untouchables, Godfather, etc.? No, unfortunately I'm not. I'm not generally into movies from before the 1970s and, you know, in general. I have a select few movies that I really like from before the 1970s, but I'm not much of a... There's just something about vintage movies that don't really interest me. Jeffrey says, have you thought about bringing back a third tea time? I've considered it, but ultimately, no, because when you live stream too much on a YouTube channel, people get way too used to it, and then they just don't show up to the live stream. So one of the reasons why I cut the third live stream from this is because less and less people were showing up. Just because there was too many live streams to choose from. And so, yeah, there's that. But also because, I end up sitting here for like 2 hours. And as hard as I try to only do a 1 hour stream, I end up sitting here for like 2 or 3 hours. And then I don't get any work done. Because the tea times are meant to be my break from work. But then I sit here for so long talking and I don't get back to it. So, because like right after this live stream, I'm going to start heating up dinner and stuff. So thankfully I'm having leftovers tonight. So I can just immediately heat up some leftovers and then get to work back on the videos. But if I had to cook dinner tonight, talking like an hour or 2 hours for cooking, yeah, I wouldn't be able to get to anything tonight. KSG, awesome. When I get back on my computer, I will accept you into the server thing and make you an archivist. Oh, there's an interesting question, but I gotta get to the others first. Okay, so I answered that one. George says, is the Queen Mary Hotel open? No, unfortunately, she has been undergoing repairs since February. She's been closed since the start of the pandemic. But they're saying that sometime this fall she'll reopen. Maybe not as a hotel. The hotel rooms might have to wait till next year. But as a tourist attraction, she should reopen sometime this fall. Jimmy says, if the Queen Mary suddenly sank, pretend it's possible, what would you do? Oh, if the Queen Mary suddenly sank? Well, there's only 12 feet of water under her, so she wouldn't sink very far. But it would be a huge travesty because you'd have to wonder, like, how fast could they pump out the ship? How fast could they, you know, prevent any further deterioration from happening? What would I do? I'd probably, like, sit in silence and just mull over it. I wouldn't cry necessarily. I don't cry over stuff like that, but I would be very disappointed, very sad, and I wouldn't really know what to do. I'd probably still keep making Queen Mary videos just because, you know, I want people to know about the incredible ship. I want to keep drawing attention to it. The more people who have channels about the Queen Mary, the better, you know. So, but yeah, I would be very sad. But sometimes, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm helpless to help the ship. I've done so much in the last 2 years alone to help the Queen Mary. Stuff I can't even tell you guys about because it's proprietary information or secret information. But I've done so much stuff to help the ship in the last 2 years. And, you know, I didn't do it alone. You know, there were people there who were all part of, you know, this great society of people who love the Queen Mary. It wasn't just QMI. There's people outside of QMI that I've met that have really been working hard to help the ship and stuff like that. So, you know, so I'm really glad that I've been able to help in some way, you know. But yeah, hopefully nothing like that ever happens. I don't think it will, though, because she's so well built. It wouldn't be possible, I don't think. At least not in her current condition. Pacific says, I think I've been actually squatting for an hour. You better, like, stand up and walk around. You're gonna your feet are gonna fall asleep or something. Oh, Magical Cat has to go. Alright, well, see you later. Dazzers says, the Isle of Man's only had one tragedy, that was the SS Ellen Vannin, which was delivering the mail from Ramsey to Liverpool. Sadly, she sank near the Bar lightship with all hands lost. Oh my gosh. Oh, wow, that is so sad. Little Gamer says, leak the invite. Yeah, you could leak the invite, but then I wouldn't accept it. I would remove those people. Jimmy Lance says, what are your thoughts on Titanic movie? Did you enjoy it? Or think it's overrated? Also, do you think any other ships should get a movie or a better movie? So the Titanic movie, I'm guessing you mean the 1997 one by James Cameron. I actually enjoy that movie. You know, it's not like the best work of art in the world. I mean, I've seen some movies that are really a work of art. But it is a wonderful movie, I think. And I think it gets a lot of the bad rap for being a romance movie. You know, because people are like, oh, well, you know, why did he have to put a romance in there? And to be honest, the fact that that movie has, you know, at one point it was the highest grossing film of all time, is due to the fact that it was a romance. You know, yeah, there were a lot of ocean liner fans that were like, oh, I want to see this to see what happened to Titanic. But there were a lot of people there who probably would have walked out of the theater if it was only about the history of Titanic. Like, come on, you gotta have something there for everybody. That's what makes a successful film. And James Cameron knows how to make successful films. There's always something for everybody in his films. So, I don't mind that it's a romance. You know, and frankly, I liked the story. I mean, you know, the whole Romeo and Juliet thing is a classic, you know. So yeah, I liked it. You know, and I have it on Blu-ray, and when it comes out in 4K, because I think they're going to do it this year, it's going to be re-released in 4K, I think for Christmas. I don't know why Christmas, but, you know. And so when it's re-released in 4K, I'll buy it in 4K. So yeah, I do like that movie, you know, yeah. KSG says, and should I head to bed? Yeah, you must sleep. Pacific says, I think I will head out now because I have chamber singers in 14 minutes. I see, okay. Joe says, what did the first class cabins on the Queen Mary look like? So that's really cool because there were all kinds of different cabins. There was everything from a plain cabin for like a first class person who's paying the least amount of money to whole suites, stateroom suites that were being paid by the most, rich people on the voyage. And each looked very different from the last. I mean, granted, the cheaper ones, they kind of all looked the same. They had like a wallpaper inside with like a little bit of wood paneling on the furnishings. They were very bare. But then you had like the slightly larger, slightly more expensive staterooms where, they had the wall paneling all around and, nice furnishings. And then you had the little bit more expensive ones, which you start getting to see a difference, which is... So if there were like 4 different kinds, because this is how I see it in my head, there were like 4 different kinds of first class staterooms. The really cheap first class ones, the one above that, the one above that, and then the really expensive suites. So if we're looking at the one just below the suites, a lot of those and the suites were designed by individual artists usually, and so each one of those last 2 on the list, the most expensive 2 sets of rooms on the list, were usually had their own unique styles to them. It was really weird. Like you'd have to see photographs to understand what I mean, but each one would have their own particular art pieces, its own particular feel to it. Some of them were more Art Deco-y than others, and some were more focused on wood paneling and warm colors versus some that were more focused on like stonework, and some even had a lot of like formica and stuff like that. So each one was different. And the only time you saw first class staterooms that kind of all looked like one another was the lower 2 sets of the spectrum. If that makes any sense whatsoever. So I wish I had a photograph of every single stateroom, first class stateroom on the Queen Mary, because like I said, each one was so different. Mary Jose says, hello Alex, I just joined the stream. Hello. The Fat Hat said, did the Queen Mary have ballast tanks? Yes. Pretty much every ship has ballast tanks. And the Queen Mary had approximately, I want to say, 66 tanks in between the keel. Those were all ballast tanks. And then she had an additional, I want to say 18, don't hold me to that, but I want to say an additional 18 lower side tanks that were also for ballast. And then she had a forward tank and a rear tank, and those were to help with the pitch of the ship when it comes to ballast. So, but she did have ballast tanks, and some of them are filled with a very special anti-corrosive mud for ballasting the ship. Some of them are filled with metal pellets. That way they're removable. The pellets are removable, so that way they could repair the tank. The mud can be removed too, by the way. They just pump water in and then vacuum it out. So that's removable. So everything in the ballast tanks, by the way, is removable. There's like this big thing that people think that they filled her tanks with concrete. That's not true, because they need to be able to repair the ship. So you can't just fill a tank with concrete. You'll never be able to get the concrete out. So they filled it with anti-corrosive mud. Some of them had the metal pellets, the ballasting pellets. And then some of them still have fresh water in the ballast tanks for doing last minute adjustments. Like if, I don't know, if something weird happened, like the ship suddenly was listing like an extra degree to port or starboard, then they could adjust that by just emptying out or filling up a ballast tank or a couple of ballast tanks. So yeah, so those are the 3 different mediums that are inside the Queen Mary's ballast tanks today. But back then, they would have all been seawater. It would have all been seawater during her voyages. Ryan says, I want to create a video soon on my personal knowledge on Queen Mary. If you want to watch it. Sorry about that. Let's see. To the Queen Mary. Oh, wait, hold on. I'm going to create a video soon on my personal knowledge on Queen Mary. If you want to watch it, you can. You don't have to, though. Okay. Well, you know, send me a link and maybe I will. Dazzer's channel. For clarification, Alex, the SS Allen Vannon tragedy happened on the 3rd of December, 1909. Okay. Oh my gosh, everybody's texting me now. Hold on. Christian says, since the Queen Mary is turned into a hotel museum ship, why there is a wall of rocks around the Queen Mary? That's a good question. So that wall of rocks around the Queen Mary is what's called a breakwater. And the breakwater is there to protect the ship from all sorts of things. If a large yacht were to go by, it would leave a kind of a big wake, and that wake can actually rock the ship a little bit. It's a huge ship, so it'd take a lot, but it could rock the ship. It could, you know, stuff like that. Let's say somebody lost control of their boat. It would be a small boat. No large ships would come that close, besides a cruise ship, but I don't see it. Well, anyway, let's just say a cruise ship or a large boat had lost control for some reason and was on a collision course with the Queen Mary. That breakwater would prevent them from striking the ship, or at least we hope so. But the main reason why there's a breakwater there has to do with how calm the water is in Queen Mary's Lagoon. So some of you know that the choppiness of water a lot of times is determined by the wind and the weather. So if it's a particularly windy day and you look out onto the harbor of Long Beach, the water will be quite choppy. Nothing bad, nothing like dangerous, just choppy. If that choppy water were to hit the Queen Mary's hull, it would create, I don't know the terminology, so just go with me on this. But if that choppy water were to hit the Queen Mary, it would constantly create like wet, dry, wet, dry, wet, dry, wet, dry. And that is what corrodes the waterline of a ship. That is exactly the cause of corrosion of a lot of museum ships, is that their waterline is being lapped at by the water, and it's constantly going wet, dry, wet, dry, wet, dry, and that creates rust, and that can make things worse. So the main reason behind the breakwater is to calm the water around the ship. And even to this day, if you go to the Queen Mary on a day when the water out in the harbor is choppy, you will notice that the water in Queen Mary's Lagoon is not choppy. So that is the reason why there's a breakwater around the Queen Mary, and it served its purpose very well over the years. And to this day, there is very, very little waterline corrosion around the Queen Mary. You know, and that's actually really remarkable, because most ships suffer waterline corrosion when they're just sitting around. So, Goofy Roll says, I'd like to see a modern movie about the unsinkable Molly Brown. She would make an entertaining movie. I think so too, yeah. She had a really interesting story to her life. So yeah, I think she would make a good movie. KSG Gamed is going to bed. Okay. Yeah. I'll talk to you later on Discord. Thank you so much. Steve's here. Steve says, "Hey, Alex, watching your stream. I'm in the drive-thru for Del Taco. Awesome." Mary says, if you could, would you live in a suite on the Titanic if it had a kitchen? I mean, you know, again, if the Titanic was, if I knew the Titanic was sinking, no. But I mean, if we're talking about like if the Titanic was preserved as like a ship the way Queen Mary's preserved today, I mean, yeah, sure. I think that would be great. You know, I do love ocean liners, so you know, if it had its own kitchen and stuff, and I had my own bathroom, yeah, I think I would. I would love to live on the Queen Mary if that's possible, you know. But it's not possible because there's no way they would build a private kitchen for people, you know. All that wood on the ship, you never know. Someone starts a grease fire, and next thing you know, the whole ship goes up. Which wouldn't happen, by the way, you guys, because the ship was cleverly designed with fire doors and all that stuff. Even the 1930s technology of the ship is still around today to protect the ship, so... Daniel says, "Hey Alex, would you rather have a Revell Queen Mary or the model of the Queen Mary used in the Poseidon?" I'd probably rather have the one used in Poseidon, just because it's more accurate. Like, way more accurate. Yeah. And I wouldn't do anything to it. I wouldn't, like, try to, like, you know, touch it up and redo it as Queen Mary. Because I know a lot of movie enthusiasts would be like, why are you doing that? You know, so I would keep it as Poseidon, and I would just tell people this is what the Mary looked like, you know. Opera says, there should be a Queen Mary movie. I wholeheartedly agree. There should be a Queen Mary movie that isn't based on ghosts. It should be a movie about like an event in her life or something. In fact, I think what's better than doing a movie on the Queen Mary is there should be a TV show on the Queen Mary. It could be a lot like Downton Abbey, where it focuses on, you know, the crew of the ship, you know, and the various things that happen. But that would be a really good TV show, especially considering all the stuff that's happened on the Queen Mary over the years. That could make a really good TV show season by season. So yeah, they should do that. Oh, Jimmy Lance has to go. All right, well, I'll see you later, Jimmy. Evan Scott says, why do the gas tanks have mud in them? So if you're asking about the oil tanks on the Queen Mary, I do not believe they all have mud in them. There might be a couple, like maybe 4, that have the special synthetic mud in them. And it is synthetic. I say synthetic, it's made of natural materials, but it's made of natural materials that won't wear away the metal. But I do not believe all of Queen Mary's fuel tanks are filled with mud. It's only the ballast tanks at the very, very bottom of the ship, and only some of them have mud in them. Others have the metal pellets, others have fresh water. But yeah, why is there mud? Well, because the mud weighs a lot. If you imagine when the Queen Mary was brought into Long Beach, and they were removing a lot of her interiors, they removed a lot of the heavyweight stuff. They removed 2 of the engines from the forward engine room. Well, they removed the entire forward engine room, let's just put it that way. They removed the turbo generators, the water softening plant. They removed the freshwater tanks for, you know, potable water. And then they removed all the boilers from the Queen Mary. So all that weight would make the ship top heavy if it wasn't properly ballasted. And the thing was that those ballast tanks were designed to hold the weight of water. So even if they filled all the ballast tanks with water, it probably wouldn't make up for the loss of weight of all the machinery. So they had to put something heavier than water in the ballast tanks. And for the tanks, and I'm going to guess this part, but for the tanks that will probably never need to be emptied, they put the mud. the mud can be emptied out from it. Again, you just fill it with water and suck it out like with a giant vacuum. So it can be removed. But some of them were filled with the special synthetic mud. And then the others were filled with pellets. The pellets are easy to remove as well. I mean, not easy, but they're easy to remove. And then the water ballast is there. It can easily be pumped out or pumped back in, you know. So so it was all the stuff that's in the ballast tanks today are designed to be easily removed from the ship if they need to do any major adjustments or major repairs. But they do need the ballast since the ship is missing so much of its machinery. The Fat Hat says, thoughts on SS United States? It's not really my favorite ship. I don't really have much interest in it. But, you know, I do hope that one day it can be restored or something, because it would be a shame to lose any ocean liner in a world where, you know, we've lost most ocean liners out there. So just because it may not be my favorite doesn't mean I don't want it to be still around. So, and there's lots of people on my channel who would love to visit the SS United States if it were fully restored and stuff. So, you know, so I understand. There's a lot of fans out there. Mary says, will you do a video on the sinking of the Ellen Vannon? Maybe. You know, I'll have to consider. It really did, like, the way I do my videos is I like pre-schedule it all so I know what videos I'm gonna make, but I also do the subjects based off of something that really stands out. Like, I have to really want to make that in order for it to be a good video. If I try to force myself to make a video about something that I'm not really that interested in, it might not turn out well. But then some things that I think I'll never be interested in suddenly become interesting. So that's kind of how I do things on my channel, is if the subject really speaks to me, that's when I make the video about it. Because if I miss that bandwagon, then the video won't be that interesting. Shaden? No, I've never heard of that steamship company. Derpy says, if you could film a big movie aboard the Queen Mary, what would it be like? I don't know. I mean, I'm not that creative in that way. I've thought about it, but there's nothing quite like, you know, like, I think a lot of people would expect that a Queen Mary movie should be like Titanic, but that's hard to do because Queen Mary never sank. She never had a major like thing like that. I think the worst issues that have ever happened to the Queen Mary was striking the, you know, HMS Curacao, and then maybe the Rogue Wave during World War II, because that probably killed a lot of people. We don't know because all that information is stored in the military and they won't release that information, but I'm sure a lot of people died and got injured when that happened. So those are really the two biggest events. You know, maybe the movie would be about Queen Mary's World War II service. I think that would be I think that would make a good movie, is the Queen Mary's World War II service. There's a lot of stories in there about her service. Lots of stories. Daniel says, hey Alex, why are the bottom of ships' hulls red? They're not always red. Sometimes they're blue, sometimes they're like... I've only ever seen blue besides red, so I guess it's just red and blue, but it's just the color chosen, I guess, for the anti-fouling paint. So, the anti-fouling paint, I believe, is a special mixture of paint, so maybe that has to do with the color, but I couldn't tell you why it's always red or blue, but... Marty's Train Shed is here. Good day to you all from sunny Queensland. Good day to you. Hello, Conrad. Christian says, I'm really surprised that Queen Mary had one of Nomadic's lifeboats. Yeah, it is kind of weird, huh? That lifeboat ended up all the way in Long Beach. But, I mean, it's no longer there anymore. It was returned to its owner. I don't think the Nomadic owned it. Oh, it might have been. Actually, you know what? It was loaned by the Nomadic. So it's probably on its way back to Nomadic right now. Mary says, what do you like better? Cunard line or White Star line? Cunard line. Yeah. I really like their history. You know, when you think about it, their first ship sailed in 1833, I want to say. And, you know, and it was the first steamship ocean liner to cross the ocean. And then, and now they own the last operating ocean liner in the world, the Queen Mary 2. So they literally were the beginning and the end of steamship ocean line business. It's really amazing. Marty's train shed just got sorry, it's tongue twister. Marty's train shed says, just got here. What did I miss? Working on the layout in the shed. Awesome. You didn't miss anything really. We're just having a conversation. But yeah, hopefully next week I'll get back to working on this one behind me. There's still a lot of work to do. I wish my dad was here because he would help me with this. You know, he'll be moving up later this month, I think. So, but when he's here, it'll be so great to have my dad help me with this because working on it by myself is really difficult. Rayanne says, "Hey Alex, just joining. Hope all is well with you." Oh, thank you so much, Rayanne. Yeah, I'm doing good. I hope you're doing good as well. Hello, Amtrak fan. Do you live in Ohio? No, I live in Oregon. Ryan G says, "Hi, I was going to start a train layout too a few years ago, but realized a lot of time and money. Nevertheless, I would still love to do it one day. I see why retired folks usually do it now. It's really fun. But yeah, it is a lot of money, and that's part of the reason why you know, this one has been around for so long and I've never completed it. You know, it's a lot of money, takes up a lot of space, it's a lot of time. And it's not just the stuff you have to buy for it, but it's also the tools and equipment you need to work on it. Like, you know, over the years, I've spent so much money on tools and equipment to work on my train layout. And it takes up a lot of space, but you know, when it's up and running and stuff, it provides so much, you know, so much joy, you know, in your pastime. I'm gonna add a little bit more tea to that. There we go. And the milk. Let's see. Marty says, "I built a dedicated building for my train layout. It's an 8 meter by 5 meter, insulated and air conditioned. You need that here with the heat." Oh my gosh, I believe it. Where are you at? Are you in New Zealand or Australia or? But yeah, you know, it'd be so cool if I had a separate like shed for my trains. Like, it'd be really cool if one day I had a whole room dedicated to trains. Like, it would just follow the wall and stuff like that, and I could build different landscapes. That'd be kind of cool, but that would represent a fortune. Goofy Rolls says, "Was the Queen Mary named after Mary, Queen of Scots, or was it named after some other British queen?" Yes, Goofy Rolls, the Queen Mary was named after Mary of Teck. She was the queen consort of King George V. So when Queen Mary, the ship, was christened in 1934, the woman who christened her was Queen Mary of Teck. Teck spelled T-E-C-K. So yeah, and she was a wonderful woman. I mean, my goodness, she had quite a history, and she helped provide advice and leadership to Queen Elizabeth II before, you know, Queen Mary died in 1956. I think it was that Queen Mary died. Yeah. So yeah, that's who it was named after, Queen Mary of Teck. Pookie says, did you say an oceanic video is on the way? Yeah, a lot of videos are on the way, to be honest. It's not like in direct production right now, but I have books like on oceanic, on Mauretania, on yeah, those are the ones I have. Oceanic, Mauretania, and Queen Mary. I've got a stack of books to get through, and I haven't had much time to get to them. But yeah, it's coming. And then, and I know you asked about the QE2 video. So yeah, I do plan to do a QE2 video, hopefully before the end of the year. There's certainly some ships I want to get to before the end of the year. But it does take a lot, because I'm literally starting from nothing. I'm starting from like 0 knowledge and going to like 100, because people are going to expect that my video is accurate. And so I'm going to need to like work really hard to make sure that it's accurate, because I really do want to do videos on those ships. I find them so fascinating. Yeah. But yeah, so definitely I would like to have a video on at least 2 other, the Oceanic and QE2 before the year is done. If not, Mauretania as well. But we'll see. Daniel says, do you ever think there will be a movie about Queen Mary that isn't horror related? I really want there to be, but from the way it looks, no. People just... I don't know. Hollywood just isn't interested in telling a story like that. They just want the ghosts, Mary says, do you think Queen Mary is better than her sister? Queen Mary's is my favorite of the 2, for sure. There is something about Queen Mary. The Queen Elizabeth is a very beautiful or was a very beautiful ship. But there was something about the Queen Mary that was just better. Even the crew who worked on both ships, they said that they still preferred the Mary, because the Mary had a well-established method of operation, whereas the Queen Elizabeth, it just didn't feel right. They didn't think that it operated as smoothly, whatever that means. But yeah, so, Queen Elizabeth was a very beautiful ship, but there was just something about Queen Mary that was just more. And a lot of the Queen Elizabeth fans, I don't think they want to hear that. They want to hear that Queen Elizabeth was newer and more beautiful and more technically advanced. She was, and beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but there really was something about the Queen Mary that it struck a lot more people, So yeah, I don't know. Amtrak fan says, I used to live in California and got to see the Queen Mary. I miss her. Yeah, I miss the Queen Mary too. Chris says, what did they remove RMS Queen Mary's... Why did they remove RMS Queen Mary's boilers and other equipment? That seems to be stupid. Well, it's because when the Queen Mary was brought to Long Beach, the idea was to turn her lower levels into a massive museum of the sea. It was going to be a Jacques Cousteau museum. It would have been big. It would have been like an indoor theme park with rides and everything. But it was going to be a huge museum. And unfortunately, the budget kept having to be cut on that museum. So by the time they finished gutting a lot of the lower levels of the Queen Mary, they really only needed 2 of the... How many rooms? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So of the 9 rooms that they gutted, they only needed 2 of them in the end. Now, some people might go like, oh, well, that's really dumb. I mean, yeah, it is dumb, but when you think about it, the whole reason why they brought the Queen Mary to Long Beach was because they wanted to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. They wanted to build a Jacques Cousteau Museum of the Sea in Long Beach, but to build the building would have costed more than just refurbishing the Queen Mary. And they knew that Queen Mary was retiring, and Queen Mary was a famous ship, really famous. At the time of her retiring, she was more famous than Titanic at that time. And And so they thought, well, if we have this big popular ship come to Long Beach, we can build a museum inside of the ship, and that way, you know, the costs can be combined and the profits can be combined. That was the thinking. It wasn't necessarily a bad idea, but how they went about things ended up not being the right way to go about things. So, in the end, they only used 2 of the rooms that they gutted. The rest were just gutted in the end for no reason. And that was really unfortunate. Yeah. But yeah. But in terms of equipment, she still has her steering gear room, and she still has her after boiler room. I'm sorry, not after engine room. After engine room. And then she's got other machinery spaces higher up on the decks. Keith says, "Hey Alex, when will you do a live stream of Railroads Online again?" I'm really not sure. I did that on this channel once, didn't I? I don't know. Not a lot of people attended that, so I didn't feel like people liked it that much. Not on this channel, at least. The other channel they did. Mary says, would you call yourself a historian or a ship enthusiast? I'm a ship enthusiast. I'm an enthusiast of a lot of things. So I don't pretend to be, you know, a expert on anything. And I always tell you guys this on my live streams. I'm always learning new stuff. You know, the only reason why my channel is called Alex the Historian is because I knew so much about Disneyland history. Like, even to this day, Disneyland history is that I might call myself a historian on. I know so much about it. But yeah, so what was I getting at? But my, you know, a few of my coworkers way back when I worked at Disneyland, they used to joke that, you know, oh, if you have a question about Disneyland history, talk to Alex the Historian over here. He knows the answer. So that was kind of like my inspiration for naming my channel, because my channel was about Disneyland history at the time, exclusively Disneyland history. But now I branched out into a lot more things, and so, but, you know, my channel still remains with the same name. Let's see. See you later, Amtrak fan. Sheridan says, don't spread yourself too thinly. Yeah, that's true. Fat Hat says, if Queen Mary had been capsized when she was a troop ship, how fast would she have sunk? And would she have sunk fast, stern first or bow first? Oof. I mean, if she capsized, she would have just flopped right over, so she probably would have sank evenly. That's my best guess. I mean, I don't know much about hydrodynamics or how ships sink necessarily. I know the basics of how ships sink, but that's when they're sitting right side up, not upside down. Upside down, I would imagine the ship would have sank evenly. Dazzer's channel says, wishing everyone a good night. Looking forward to watching another one of those sometime. Keep up the good work. Thank you so much. Chris says, since I am a good artist, I have drawn a lot of pictures of my floating home RMS Britannic 2. Awesome. Hello, Brian. Christian says, did the Queen Mary ever throw a propeller blade like the RMS Olympic did? To my knowledge, no. Queen Mary never threw a propeller blade. And part of the reason why was because Queen Mary's propellers were all cast in one piece. When ships like Olympic and Titanic, their propellers were cast in multiple pieces, with the actual blades being bolted onto the propeller, I don't know what you call it, the central part of the propeller hub, I guess. They were bolted on there, and so that's why the propellers often, you know, threw a blade. But on Queen Mary, her propellers were all cast in one piece. It would have been very difficult to throw a propeller blade. Crane Boy says, White Star Line or Cunard? Cunard is my favorite. Marty's Train says, I have a collection of ON30 narrow gauge trains, mainly based on Puffing Billy in Victoria, Australia. Nice. Mary says, if you could, would you have a voyage on the Lusitania? I mean, again, if it didn't sink, then yeah. I would have a voyage on most any steamship if it was still around today, and I know it wasn't going to sink, you know? So yeah, it would, yeah. Everything Disney says, if you could have one non-IP land to come to Disney parks, what would you want? Non-IP land? I don't know. I'm not very creative when it comes to that. I don't know. Derpy says, but random, how feasible do you think it would be for a hypothetical film crew to temporarily remove the plastic coverings on the bulwarks around the outside of the forward promenade on Queen Mary? Hold on. I'm very confused by your question. You know, I wasn't aware there was plastic coverings on the bulwarks. I wasn't... Yeah, I don't know. I've never heard of that. Around the outside of the forward promenade? Plastic coverings. I don't recall there being any plastic... Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm drawing a blank. I don't recall there being any plastic coverings out there. I'm trying to, like, think about it in my head. I'm like, okay... Forward promenade. Are you talking about the... Oh, you're talking about the, sorry. The wind blocks, right? For people to sit out there. Because there's like a plexiglass, right? An acrylic plexiglass that surrounds the whole thing. For people. Okay, I think I see what you mean. Yeah, a film crew could easily remove that. I don't know that they would want to, though. Just because the people operating the ship wouldn't allow it. You know, they wouldn't allow it, so... but yeah, a film crew could easily remove that. And they probably could reinstall it better than it looked before it was removed. But yeah, I don't think the people operating the ship would want them to do that. Everything Disney says, have you ever met any Disney Imagineers that worked on Disneyland in 1955? Yes, I have met Bob Gurr. Did I meet anybody else? I never met another Imagineer besides Bob Gurr that worked on Disneyland in 1955. But I've met other Imagineers. I've met other important Disney people. But yeah, Bob Gurr was the only one. Conrad says, your explanation last time of the naming of the Queen Mary with forward thinking in mind makes a lot of sense. I was impressed. Mary says, which do you think is better, Campania or Oceanic? Oceanic. Yeah, Oceanic for sure. Oh, see you later, Goofy Rolls. Everything Disney says, am I allowed to ask questions about Disney, or is this about boats? You're allowed to ask questions about Disney, because indeed my channel does have something to do with Disney. Let's see. Evan Scott says, can't wait for December for the Queen Mary to open. I hope it does open in December. Chris says, have you ever heard of the YouTube channel called Oceanliner Designs? Absolutely, I do watch some of his stuff. Hello, Teresa. I'm doing good. Let's see. Teresa says, how's the weather? Weather's good. Bit warm, but it's good. Fat Hat says, why did Queen Mary sometimes have red funnels, but at other times she had yellow funnels? So, from what's been explained to me is that sometimes it depends on the exposure of the photo. Because supposedly, according to a bunch of people who... they really did not like that I said that there was different colors of the funnels. They insist, you know, they swear on their own graves that the color was always the same. So they say that it's the exposure of the film that it changed the photos changed the color depending on the quality of the photo, the exposure of the shot, that kind of thing. So people tell me up and down that the ship never had red funnels and that she always had the same Cunard orange. Frankly, I have no way to disprove that, but I mean, I've seen the photos that you're talking about. Some of them are more red than others. Some people say that, you know, those were colorized photos. They could have been. To be honest, I'm not an expert at deciphering a colorized photo versus a non-colorized photo. Usually you can tell the difference, but sometimes you just can't tell the difference. But yeah, so I'm going to have to go with what the majority says because they'll slit my throat if I don't. So, so Queen Mary always had the same color funnels. I'm just going to have to say it that way. The reason why it looks different in photographs is because of the photograph itself. Keith says, that sucks. I really enjoyed the Railroads Online. The three of you are so funny. Well, I might still do it on my other channel, just not this one. Mary says, if Queen Mary was as big as the Titanic, would you think it would still be as famous or less famous? Yeah, I think it still would have been, because the Queen Mary isn't famous for her size, necessarily. I mean, she is somewhat famous for her size, but Queen Mary is more famous for, you know, the events that she's been through, the events that the ship has been through. So, yeah, I think she would still be, you know, still be just as famous. Teresa says, how do you build your model train? I'm trying to build one of mine. I have a few videos already on my channel about that, so I don't remember the name of the playlist. You'll see the videos on my channel if you go to my videos or my playlists. There's a playlist somewhere that shows the 2 videos I've made so far about my train set. But if you have a specific question, I'd be happy to answer it. But your question's a very broad question, so I'm not really sure how to answer it. Christian says, Alex, I have this book on the Sea of Glass. A Life and Loss of Time, RMS Titanic. It goes through the whole history of the Titanic. I've heard of that book. Chris says, would you like to see the Union Pacific Big Boy locomotive in action? Yeah, that'd always be fun. If I didn't have to go out of my way to do it, then yeah, it'd be fun. I've been next to the Big Boy before. It was under steam when it happened, so I was walking around and I was, you know, videoing it and stuff, and it's big. It's a big engine. Taylor says, just curious, where is somewhere you'd like to visit in England, but you know you won't be able to on your Queen Mary to England trip? England, let's see. Well, if I had to limit it to England, and if I remember correctly, Newcastle upon Tyne. I think that's in England, not Scotland. Pretty sure it's England. Newcastle upon Tyne. Because that's where they have the original Turbinia. So I'd definitely like to go there. I'd also definitely like to go to Liverpool. But I know I won't make it to those places for our trip. Maybe Liverpool, but that's a big maybe. But if you're saying the UK in general, then besides those two places, I would really, really like to visit Edinburgh, because there's a lot of history there, and the Royal Yacht Britannia is in Edinburgh, as well as... No, that other one is somewhere else. But yeah, the Royal Yacht Britannia is in Edinburgh, so I'd like to go to Edinburgh, but that's another one of those places we just don't have time for. Everything Disney says, sorry for the Disneyland questions. I subscribed to your channel years ago. Like in 2017, I haven't been here since. Oh my gosh. It's been a long time. Well, welcome back. I think it's possible sometime this month I will release a Pirates of the Caribbean video. If not, it might have to wait till next month. But I do want to release another Disneyland video soon because people have been waiting, so... Evan Scott says he's talking about the pigskins. What pigskins? Mike says, I didn't get a notification. Hello, everyone. Hello, Mike. Chris says, have you ever heard of a YouTube channel called Historic Travels? Absolutely. I've seen a few of his videos, and he watches a few of my videos. I think I've spoken very little to him, but I have spoken to him. Taylor Lewis says, speaking of Oceanic, are you still going to release the video about Oceanic? No rush, just wanting to make sure that the video hasn't been scrapped. No, the video is still coming out. I'm still working on it. I got sidetracked by a lot of stuff. When my videos don't do well on the channel, I have to change up the whole schedule to try to make better videos and make them faster, because then I have to scramble, to get the viewers back up. So when that happens, videos that take longer to make, such as the Oceanic video, has to be pushed back. That's why I'm always like, please watch my videos, you guys, because if the videos don't do well, then I have to change the whole schedule again, and then try to put out more videos that are shorter and aren't as difficult to make. So, but yes, I still plan on making Oceanic video, very much so, because I love that ship. I want to talk about its history. Everything Disney says, what do you know about the Disneyland Railroad and its conversion to biodiesel? Well, what I can tell you is based off of what I have in my video, because I don't know much past that, but what I can tell you is that between 2007 and 2008, they were doing the conversions. And what they had to do was they had to get a new atomizer. So they used regular number 2 diesel oil before, and the atomizers were specifically calibrated for that. And the atomizers spray the fuel into the firebox and ignite it in order to make the fire. And when they swapped to B98 number 2 biodiesel, it was a bit more viscous. It was a bit more thick. So they needed a slightly different atomizer. So they had to install those atomizers. They had to custom make them, but then they installed them. And not much had to change, thankfully, because honestly, B98 biodiesel isn't very different from normal diesel. So there actually wasn't much to change aside from the atomizer. The tanks that held the original diesel could still hold biodiesel just fine. Yeah, and I do know that there was definitely a big difference at the time, because people would talk about how they were used to smelling, the diesel, and now when you're on the trains, you smell the French fries. So, because in case those who don't know, Disney makes their B98 biodiesel. Well, Disney doesn't make it, but they get their B98 biodiesel by sending off their used fryer oil that's used around the park. So the used cooking fryer oil is sent to a company that refines it. I don't know which company. I think it's called Biotane is the company. And then that company refines it, and then they add about 2% of the weight. They add 2% of regular diesel to make it a bit more flammable. And then that's how they make the B98 biodiesel. And so it burns more cleanly than diesel. It's better for the environment because most of it is from, renewable resources. And, yeah, it is about, I think per gallon, it's 2 cents cheaper. No, actually, that might be different now, because now that I think about it, right now, there's like the fuel prices across the planet are skyrocketing. So, in fact, they might actually be saving a good chunk of money now, since they're running on biodiesel, because they're reliant on fryer oil, not too much of the fossil fuel. So, yeah, it might be making them a lot more money now. Yeah. That's kind of what I can tell you about it. There wasn't much of a change, just because it's practically almost the same liquid. Teresa says, why do you hate Normandy and love it? I think you're referencing the titles of 2 of my private videos. Those videos are designed to make people think. I don't hate Normandy, and I don't love Normandy. I don't hate Normandy because, first of all, it's weird to hate a ship. But Normandy is not my favorite ship. And there are a few reasons why. And then there are, I don't love Normandy either, which is the title of the other video. But, but I don't hate it. So that's kind of why. But the titles were there to kind of make you think about, is it silly to love or hate a ship? Because some people say it's silly to hate a ship, but yet they say that they love other ships. So if it's silly to hate one ship, then it should be silly to love a ship, and vice versa. So that's what those videos were about. I don't love or hate Normandy. It's just not my kind of ship. But if you want to know why, the reason is because it's just not my style. It's a bit too over the top for my taste. I don't like the way the Normandy looks on the outside very much either. Yeah, I like more traditional looking ships. Normandy is a bit more like, very, very super modern for its time, which is a compliment to the Normandy, actually. It looked like a ship from the 1940s as opposed to a ship from the 1930s. So it really was kind of ahead of its time. But yeah, I just prefer more classic looking ships like the Queen Mary. Mary says, do you think the Kronprinz Wilhelm is more beautiful than Kaiser Wilhelm der Glas? Yeah, I do. I really do. That's why it's on my list. The Kronprinz Wilhelm. It's just, they look so close, in their appearance, but, Kronprinz Wilhelm, I think, just a little bit nicer, in my opinion. Teresa says, would you like a car or a plane? Neither. What's with these weird questions? Teresa and Mary, you're both... would you rather have a speedboat that could go 50 knots or in the United States? I wouldn't want to have either. I'm gonna... Christian says, hey, Alex, did you hear about Queen Elizabeth II passing away? Oh, yes, of course. Queen Elizabeth II was certainly, one of the most inspirational people to me. So, yeah, when the morning I heard about it, I was just so sad. And I did a live stream that morning. You can actually check it out. The live stream's still available. And I talk about my personal thoughts on Queen Elizabeth II and kind of my little final goodbye to it. So that's still available on the channel if you want to go back and see it. Chris says, what if the German U-boat sank the RMS Queen Mary, and how would it affect the war outcome? Well, the war definitely... The victory would have taken a bit longer because of the reduced capacity of transporting troops. But I think that's about it, to be honest. It would have slowed down things, but I don't think it would have necessarily, like, completely stopped the war from being won, you know. Fat Hat says, what time is it in Oregon? Because it's 7:37 here in Wichita. Kansas? It is 5:46 here. It's 7:37. Oh, you must have typed that a long time ago. Yeah, I'm 2 hours behind you. Teresa says, would you go on Titanic or Rex? Rex, yeah. No news on the submarine, Marty. Sorry about that. Chris says, have you ever visited Marceline, Missouri to see Walt Disney Museum? Just wondering, that's all. No, I've never been to Marceline, Missouri. Maybe one day if I'm in the area, I'll definitely go. But no, I don't have any plans to, but I've never been there before. Daniel says, hey, Alex, what are your thoughts on cruise ships that are from the same era of ocean liners? Still not my kind of thing. I never liked the purpose or the look of cruise ships. Taylor says, I know it's too early to say yet. Do you think you'll plan another trip to the UK to visit the places you were unable to visit after your first trip happens? You know, if the first trip is really successful and the videos that are produced from that trip are really successful, it might earn me the income I need to actually go again. And I would like to. You know, I think my friend Chris would like to go again. He may not want to do a whole month-long trip like that, you know, because it's a voyage there and a voyage back. He may not want to do that again necessarily, but I think he would want to go again as well. So yeah, I mean, if it was very successful and you guys loved the videos and the videos got a lot of views, then I would definitely do it again. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I would go to the places that I missed for sure. Teresa says, where did you get the trains and foam for the train? I'm trying not to copy your train set, but I'm trying to build that peak that burned and might have burned down. So the trains I all got from eBay. Almost everything I get of railroads are from eBay. But I haven't gotten everything all at once. So just like this tea set, I got everything piece by piece. And some of them I got by going to train shows. So there would be train shows that came to my old city when I lived in California. And I would go to train shows and then buy stuff from there. So I just, eBay, train shows, Amazon, and, various other places. I went to some train stores to buy stuff. So the foam I got from a place called... Oh, what was it? Oh, what? Yeah, was it? Was it HD Supply? I think it was. Yeah, I went to a place called HD Supply. So normally HD Supply, they supply businesses with maintenance equipment, tools, and supplies. But they do have their own like central warehouse. Well, when I lived in Orange County, they had one in Orange County. And that's where we went. We got the large pieces of foam there. And that was a funny story because they come in 4 foot by 8 foot sheets. That's almost that's a little over a meter by almost 2 meters long. They come in these huge sheets. And my friend, he had a truck that we could carry the stuff in, but the truck wasn't big enough to fit the foam sheets. So I I remember telling the workers, like, because I needed help because I didn't bring the thing I needed to cut the foam. I said I needed to cut the foam into 3 pieces each, and I think there were 2 sheets of foam, 2 of these sheets of foam. Oh my goodness, it was crazy. So yeah, I was there, and they brought out like a cardboard cutting knife. I'm cutting, and I'm in the parking lot cutting down the foam into 3 separate pieces, and the blade isn't long enough to go all the way through. So I cut the surface, and then me and my friend are there trying to push the foam apart. Foam is going everywhere, all over the parking lot. And of course, I felt really bad because that foam going into the environment is not a good thing. That was a crazy day, and my friend Steve will probably laugh at that because he was the one that drove me there. So, oh, that was hilarious. And then we had to strap all the foam down. I remember we were putting we originally wanted to put the foam in the bed of his truck, but we weren't sure that it wasn't going to fly away. So we ended up stuffing all the foam in the cabin of his truck. And oh my gosh, yeah, that was crazy. Where was that question? I lost my place because... Oh, okay, there we go. Aurora says, have you ever been to famous graves of any celebrities? No. No, I haven't. Oh, the fat hat's leaving. See you later. Teresa says, what scales are there? What scales are there? There's multiple scales. So when it comes to railroading, you can do anything as small as Z scale, which is very, very tiny, all the way up to G gauge. And G gauge isn't called G scale because there's no G scale, but G gauge is the gauge of the tracks, and that's pretty big. That's like a garden railroad layout. And then you can go anywhere in between. So there's Z. This is in America, by the way. Z scale, N scale, HO, O scale, ON30, which is in between, you know. But there's ON30, which is O scale. And then there is S scale, which is in between. No. S scale is in between. Okay, so hold on. Let me start again. There's Z scale, N scale, HO, S, O scale, and then G scale, or G gauge. So those are the 6 different main ones you can get in the United States. Other countries have different ones. Like there's a scale called double O, and I believe double O is in between O scale and G gauge. And then there's TT scale, which is in between Z scale and N scale. But again, these are from different countries, so yeah. Chris says, would I be on a voyage on his ship if he had a clone copy of RMS Britannic 2? Yeah, I mean, you know, if you passed all the safety inspections, then yeah, I'd do it. Hey, Lightning McQueen. Christian says, I can't believe that Cunard didn't want to take the Olympic in to keep using her as a passenger liner, and instead they scrapped the old Reliable. Well, the thing is that when ships get that old and that outdated, they begin to cost more money than they produce money, you know, than they earn, I should say. So it's not like Cunard was just like spiteful and they were like, oh, this old ship, let's get rid of it, you know, like it had to do with the fact that it wasn't earning the amount of money it needed to turn enough of a profit. So that's usually why ships are scrapped. So Cunard isn't, you know, so dumb that they would just, you know, scrap a ship for no other reason. It was based entirely off of how much money the ship would have earned. Teresa Roybal says, is there ON37? ON37? That doesn't make sense, no. Danielle says, were any of the crew that scrapped Olympic sad? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's all kinds of stories of the crew who sailed the Olympic to her final destination before she was scrapped, and, you know, how sad they were and stuff like that. That's usually a lot of the same thing you hear. And that's usually a lot of the same thing you hear from most ships. Yeah. Most any ship that is being sent to the scrappers, there's all kinds of sad stories. Yeah, but the crew really loved the ships that they were sailing on. 037. Yeah, the thing that's confusing to me isn't that you added an N to it. The thing that's confusing is that you added a 37. Like, what would the 37 be? Because the reason why this is called ON30 is because 30 stands for how wide the rails would be in real life. In real life, these rails would be 30 inches apart. So that's why it's called O narrow gauge 30, ON30. And there's really no such thing as 30-inch gauge in real life. It's usually either 18 inches, 24 inches, 36 inches, you know. So, but there's no 30-inch. So they kind of made it up with this scale. But even less reason for there to be a 37-inch gauge. So that's why I'm a little confused by your question. Oh, all right. So, folks, it has been 2 hours. I am going to sign off because I do need to heat up some food, and then I'm going to be continuing to work on a video. I'm really worried because I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that Ursuline Convent video out for Saturday. I really don't think I will. So maybe what I'll do is I'll create a short, you know, like a YouTube short, and probably try to have that out tomorrow or Saturday. Saturday, by the way, you guys, Saturday is the next live stream with me and Steve. It's about Queen Mary's steam turbines. So if you want to learn about the engines and how they worked and how everything's laid out together, join me on Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific time. So I know some of you are in various places around the world. Just check what 2 p.m. Pacific time is for, let's see, what day would it be? Today's the 13th, 14th, so 15th, the 15th at 2 p.m. Pacific time. Yeah, so, okay. And the next live stream will be on Sunday, you guys. So I will see you all on Sunday. All right, folks. Thank you all for joining me. Bye-bye.